Good morning, I'm Danny Laurel. It is Tuesday, the 14th of April, bringing you Morning Matters because your mornings matter. Now, first on this agenda, motorists are getting a break at the pumps today. That's as oil companies implement a fuel price rollback. Petron, for one, cut gasoline prices by 4 pesos and 43 centavos per liter, diesel by 20 pesos and 89 centavos, and kerosene by 8 pesos and 50 centavos. These new prices took effect early this morning. The Energy Department said the adjustment is based on average global trading data, particularly from the Mine of Platte, Singapore, which showed a decline last week. It warns, however, that any escalation in the Middle East conflict could again push oil prices higher. Let's now check the situation over at some gas stations. We have mobile journalist Francis Rivera on the ground. Francis, magkano ang presyo ng fuel dyan? Kamusta ka dyan? All right, we will get back to Francis later on. Now let's move on to the next news point. President Bongbong Marcos has used his emergency powers amid the oil crisis, removing the excise tax on some petroleum products. And Maricel Halili has this report.
Starting Tuesday, April 14, kerosene and liquefied petroleum gas or LPG will be sold minus excise taxes for the government. President Bongbong Marcos made the announcement on Monday afternoon as he invoked the emergency powers granted him by Congress last month to help consumers cope with rising fuel costs.
Ang katumbas nito ay 3 piso at 36, how much is this? 336. 3 pesos 36 ang bawas ng kada kilo ng LPG, halos 37 pesos sa isang tangke ang mababawasan ng presyo. At 565 pesos 60 centavos kada litro ng kerosene.
Many, however, were expecting that excise taxes on diesel and gasoline will be included as the transport sector and motorists mainly use both. The president says the tax cuts for the vital fuels will be discussed in the meeting of the Unified Package for Livelihoods, Industry, Food and Transport or UPLIFT Committee on Tuesday. Recall that the president had announced last week the government will provide a 10 peso per liter discount to PUV drivers at select gas stations as part of its continuing aid package. This will start in Metro Manila and will be expanded at an undisclosed date to other areas.
That fund will not exist if we remove the VAT on petroleum products alone. So that's the reasoning behind. We will still examine it. You know, like I keep telling you, there's nothing that we are not looking at as a possible option. We are looking at all the options.
Apart from the announcement on the excise tax cuts, President Marcos also faced the media amid rumors about his health. He took personally dispel the rumors, even doing jumping jacks as he walked to the podium. He also addressed reports of AI-generated materials being used to cover up his absence.
Ayan, this is hindi sa tape. It is I am carrying my statement for this afternoon, which is what I'm going to make. It is April 14. We're going to talk about the excise tax. So this has been done today.
Several social media accounts recently claimed that the president was either suffering from stage 4 cancer or was confined in a private hospital.
I challenge anyone who were saying that I am sick, that they come and exercise with me. We will see who is stronger. You come to the gym with me. Tingnan natin kung sino mas malakas magbuhat ng weight. Kaya mula ngayon, yung mga taong yan na nagsabi sa inyo na may sakit ako, na baldado na ako, alam ninyo, puro sinungaling ng mga yan. Kaya't lahat ng sasabihin ng mga yan, kasinungalingan. Now you know who the liars are and who is telling the truth.
Marcos said he last went to the hospital some 2 or 3 months ago for a scan to confirm that his diverticulitis has completely healed. He said his diet is back to normal and that he is only taking maintenance medicines for gout and hypertension. For News 5, Matters Halili, We Are One News.
And now let's check the situation at gas stations. We have mobile journalist Francis Rivera on the ground. Francis, are you there? Magkano na ang presyo ng fuel dyan?
Good morning, Danny. Ngayon, naglalaro na sa 120 pesos per liter yung presyo ng diesel at 90 pesos naman para doon sa gasoline. Ito nga ay matapos yung 5 sunod-sunod na linggo na pagsirit o pagtaas ng presyo ng petrolyo. At ngayong linggo, lamang nakaranas na ng rollback dito sa mga produktong petrolyo. At ayon nga doon sa mga nakausap nating mga motorista kanina, no, sa pag-iikot-ikot natin sa mga gas station dito ay talagang magaan na to para sa kanila at umaasa nga sila na sana magtuloy-tuloy na yung rollback ng mga presyo ng petrolyo lalo na ngayon na nakakita na sila daw ng liwanag dahil inaasahan nga nila na this week papalo raw sa 200 pesos pero good news daw yun para sa kanila na nagkaroon ng rollback dahil kahit papaano may maitatabi pa rin sila sa mga kikitain nila sa ngayong araw. Danny?
Mas marami ba yung nagpapagas today compared to, for sure, yesterday, no? Nag-antay ba yung mga tao na magpagas today or compared to the last few weeks, Francis?
Yes, Danny. Actually, based naman doon sa mga nakakausap nating mga gasoline staff or crew, no? Talagang kagabi or kaninang madaling araw, no? Marami na raw yung mga humahabol. Lalo na kaninang alas 6 or 6 a.m. kung saan halos dito raw. Ito sa akin likuran, halos mahaba raw ang pila dahil nga talagang hinintay din nila talaga yung rollback o kahit pa paano bumaba yung magbawas ng presyo yung gas and diesel. Dito kasi sa kinakatayon natin 127, no? From last week nasa 140 or 50 yung iba sa ating mga nakikita, 160 pa nga. And ngayon talagang 130, 120 yung presyo ng per liter sa diesel. So based sa mga nakakausap natin, inhawa na rin to kahit papaano at yun nga, sana daw magtuloy-tuloy na to hanggang next week.
May nakausap ka bang mga PUV or jeepney drivers? Kasi last week, PBBM also announced additional 10 peso per liter discount pa, di ba? Apart from this rollback that's happening today, nafe-feel na ba nila yon? Madali bang kunin yung discount na yan?
Danny, this discount, actually wala pa tayo nakausap kung may nag-avail na ba nito. Pero doon sa mga nakakausap natin kanina na PUV or PUJ o doon sa mga jeepney driver, sabi nga nila kahit pa paano, buti na nga lang daw, hindi pumalo ngayong linggo ng 200 pesos at yung mga discount na inaasahan din nila, sana makuha raw nila within this week or kahit pa paano, pag nagpagas daw sila ngayon. Kasi yung iba sa mga nakausap natin, Danny, parang ilang araw munang huminto, bumiyahe dun sa from last week. Kasi
Okay.
nga, talagang
So medyo at least konting hinga for today, no? Kahit papaano, maraming salamat for those updates, mobile journalist Francis Rivera. Energy Undersecretary Alessandro Sales says diesel prices could go down to between 75 and 90 pesos per liter. That's under a best-case scenario if a long-term ceasefire is reached in the Middle East. Sales made this statement during a House joint briefing on the Middle East situation. Meanwhile, oil industry players were asked how quickly they could adjust fuel prices if President Bongbong Marcos orders the suspension of fuel excise taxes, and here is what they said.
We probably need 1 or 2 days just to develop the implementing rules, and there is a meeting already tomorrow to discuss that. Because number one, they need to reckon the existing inventory of the oil companies, and also to develop the mechanism whereby it is refunded. No? Now, the difficult part is how do you reckon the inventories of the gasoline stations?
Don't go away. We will be back with more stories after this short break. Good morning, I'm Dani Laurel here on Morning Matters to talk about the most pressing issues and give you the context behind the headlines. The Energy Department is urging government agencies to begin shifting to electric vehicles. Department of Energy Secretary Sharon Garin made the call during the third hearing of the Senate Protect Committee. Garin said the ongoing oil crisis has highlighted the country's heavy reliance on fuel imports and the negative effects of a deregulated local oil industry. Now, while the secretary said DOE officials are working long hours amid the energy emergency, the agency's work-from-home arrangement got the ire of some senators. DOE personnel are now only required to be on site for 2 days a week.
Kayo inaasahan. Namamatay na yung tao ng gutom, hindi na makapaghanap buhay. Wala nang ani, wala nang pagkain. At ang DOE ay nagbabakasyon. Tama ba yun? Sabi ng Pangulo, 4 na araw. Bakit kayo 2 days?
2 days, ma'am, because we are aware that we have to save energy and electricity. Mr. Chair, hindi po nagbabakasyon ng DOE. The objective of work from home is not to stop working.
Well, let's discuss that and other developments with Senator Sherwin Gatchalian. Good morning, Senator. Welcome to the program.
Good morning, Daniela. Good morning to our televiewers.
Sen, let's kick off with that, no? Because, I mean, it's quite difficult for us to see that the Department of Energy and senators are at odds about certain things. Let's kick off with this work from home issue. It seems like a small issue, but you mentioned it's an optics problem. What is your issue with this and what is your suggestion?
This is actually the second time a senator, this is actually, two senators actually flagged this DOE work from home arrangement. The first hearing, it was Senator Lauren Legarda who flagged it. I remember she said the original arrangement was once a week once a week on site, and then 4 times a week work from home. And then this time around, Senator Amy Marcos flagged the agency again, saying that the agency has a 2-day on site and 3-day work from home arrangement. At the center of this problem is energy. And it's important that the Energy Department is on the ball. And it's important also that the Energy Department is on call to all of us, to our constituents. So the point here being is since the Department of Energy is at the center of this issue, optics plays a very important role. That's why it's important that the DOE should revisit their work from home arrangement. And if I am going to be asked, it's better for DOE to be on site all the time because they have to be reachable all the time.
Have you solved this dilemma? Is there some compromise that's going to happen now?
Well, the ending was to request DOE to revisit this policy. Again, if the crisis doesn't warrant the presence and the decision-making points of DOE, then it's okay to do a 2-day on-site and 3-day work from home. But like I said, DOE is at the center of this crisis. And it's important for the DOE to be reachable and to be present all the time. The compromise there, or what the committee suggested, is for DOE to revisit this and to reconsider, and also to look at their working policy and make sure that they are present all the time for the Filipino people.
Sen, apart from this work from home issue, clear question, are you satisfied with the DOE's overall response to this crisis?
Daniela, we cannot oversimplify the problem because the problem is very complicated. Of course, we would like to get straight answers and simple answers, but we cannot oversimplify the complexity of this problem. This problem is beyond our control. We don't have any control whatsoever with what's happening in the Middle East. Even information is very scarce to the Philippines, and not only to the Philippines, but to many countries, because the decision makers are the United States and Israel to a certain extent, and that's not within our sphere of information. So having said that, the government is making do with whatever it can, and that's why our suggestion is to go out of our traditional oil sources. The main problem now, Daniela, is getting the source of oil. And we recommended to continue the high-level dialogues with different countries, look for non-traditional sources of oil.
I'll go back to the sources of oil question, Sen, but I have to play devil's advocate here. No, I had Prof. Leico, an economist, yesterday, Perry Ferrer of the Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry on my show yesterday, and they were highlighting, Vietnam has pump prices, the equivalent of something like 50 pesos per liter, no? So we all are facing the same global issue, the same sort of crisis in Iran, but they were able to cap the fuel prices early on and not make this issue spread towards their larger economies. We are facing quite major issues right now. We have the World Bank downgrading our growth sub 4%, above 4 to 6% inflation this year. S&P downgrade from positive to stable. I can go on. Why could we not have done the same thing as our neighbors did early in the crisis?
Daniela, what these people are not disclosing is all of these countries are subsidizing their oil and fuel. Only the Philippines and Singapore is passing on the true cost of oil to our consumers. If you look at Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, these are oil-producing countries. And a portion of the revenues that they get from their oil production goes through oil subsidies. We don't do that. Well, number one, we don't produce any oil. So we don't have any source of revenue to subsidize our oil. In the case of Vietnam, they also have massive subsidies for electricity and for petroleum, and that also eats up a lot of their revenue. So we have a different track. In fact, our subsidy comes in a targeted form, and that was extensively discussed yesterday during the hearing, that we do a lot of targeted approach. And those targeted approach are much more efficient, much more prudent in terms of fiscal decision making, and that's the subsidy that we are applying based on our fiscal capacity. So it's very difficult to compare apples to apples because number one, we don't produce any oil and gas. We have gas, malampaya, but oil we don't produce that, and that's one big difference between us and our ASEAN neighbors.
Just to nuance that, no, Sen, the economists were saying that if we had declared a state of national emergency instead of a state of energy emergency, then we could have done the subsidies instead of these ayudas to the transport industry, instead of all these price caps in the agricultural basic goods, supply chain management. We could have just used the funds to directly subsidize the fuel so that it would not get into the pump prices, and then all of these things would have been cushioned. Do you not agree with that?
Daniela, those are just semantics. The most important is the legal basis for those declarations. And now that we have declared the national state of national energy emergency, the president can use its powers under the oil deregulation law to, number one, to make sure that we have constant supply of oil by using all possible resources. And number two, the possibility of putting an oil price cap. And that's something that we have to do at the last resort. Because if you put a price cap, the tendency of these oil companies is not to import at all. If they will be losing money, they will not import, and they will have a much more difficult situation because we will not have oil supply. So it's a very difficult balancing act. So that's why all of this should be calibrated as the situation changes. Like, for example, when President Trump declared a ceasefire last April 8th, oil prices went down by as much as 13%, and we're experiencing that reduction in prices today, actually Tuesday. And because of that, then we have to recalibrate the decision making. It's a weekly, or actually it's a daily or weekly approach to recalibrating our interventions. And that's why the yesterday's hearing, we're calculating how much do we need to make sure that we have enough resources for those interventions in the next 3 months.
Sent to that point, you said yesterday our emergency funds can only cover 2.5 months left. And then you've got Yusek Sales saying best case scenario na yung 75 to 90 pesos, and that's only if this long-term ceasefire happens, which is completely out of our control. We just saw the biggest month-on-month inflation jump this March, 30 years biggest jump. Are we not in a state of national emergency?
We are in a state of national energy emergency. Again, it's just semantics. What's important here is the powers that the president can use in times of emergency, whether it's a national emergency or energy emergency. What's important here is are the powers the president can use, and that's why yesterday we discussed extensively the targeted programs that we will need in order to cushion our constituents from this abrupt inflation. So we talked about increasing 4P subsidies to by additional 1,500 pesos. We also recommended to cover the near poor, which is about 1.5 million families, and to give them 2,500 pesos. So we talked about a lot of targeted subsidies to cushion our constituents, the most vulnerable to inflation. We also talked about and recommended to look at the lower middle and the middle class, and to also reach out to them by suspending payment of premiums to GSIS and to SSS. We've done that during the pandemic time, so we'll bring back those type of interventions so that we can caution the abrupt increase in inflation.
What happens if we run out of funds? Where are we going to get it? You have Finance Secretary Go saying we're going to be needing more taxes, pushing for 8 new taxes. Is this the time?
Well, Daniela, that's why yesterday we narrowed down that if our cash burn is about 70 billion a month, then we will have approximately 3 months, and we're already a month and a half actually into these 3 months to look for other sources. Right now we have 230 billion pesos. If we're burning 70 billion a month, then we will be using up all of those 230 billion. That's the time we will have to file a supplemental budget to look for other sources. We have to discontinue, and this is a problem, we have to discontinue some infrastructure projects, some unnecessary projects, or some projects that are deemed unnecessary for now. So we will have to discontinue that and use the savings to rechannel it to social interventions.
Have you determined which are those types of projects?
Not yet, but we put that in motion already. We already advised the DBM to talk to the other agencies and to suggest to us what are those projects. But we'll wait for the official response from the agencies.
The president suspended the excise tax but only on LPG and kerosene yesterday. He might do a press con 11:30 today for the diesel and gasoline. Bakit, sir, wala pang diesel and gasoline suspension on the taxes?
Well, we're recommending to the president to pursue the suspension for diesel because diesel is a widely used fuel for transportation. For kerosene and LPG, it's really used by poor household for their cooking needs. In fact, for MSMEs, LPG is also the fuel of choice for restaurants and for other establishments. So that's why the executive suspended the excise tax for those fuel types. But for diesel, we strongly recommend to the executive to pursue the suspension because this is the fuel of the masses, fuel for logistics as well. So by reducing excise tax, we're also giving reprieve to logistics companies that transport our food. For gasoline, I agree that we need to study that further. Gasoline is used primarily by people who have big cars and we have expensive cars, so we can actually further study that.
Okay, and last question, sir, before we let you go. Today, we are seeing a rollback. Everybody's quite happy about that. But everyone is also very hopeful and expectant that this is the first week of several rollbacks to come. Ano pong masasabi nyo dyan?
Well, we might don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but Yesterday, after President Trump declared that he will implement a blockade in the Strait of Hormuz, oil prices jumped by 7 to 8% again, just yesterday. So we might see another round of increase next week because of that jump. It depends on what will happen this week. There are negotiations happening between Iran and the U.S. Hopefully that will be successful. If that will be successful this week, then we will see a continuous slide of oil prices. But if the blockade will remain, because the blockade in effect will create disruptions in the Strait of Hormuz, and again, we don't need more disruptions in that area. But if that will continue, then we will see a return of increase of prices in petroleum.
Send quickly, will this affect the more than 1 million barrels that we already secured?
No, because PNOC secured it from other non-traditional sources such as Russia. I understand they also have some deals with China and with Korea outside of the sources from the Middle East. So that will not be affected.
All right. Thank you so much for your time, Senator Sherwin Gatchalian. Morning, sir.
Maraming salamat. Thank you.
And stay tuned. Morning Matters will be back after this short break. Welcome back. You're still watching Morning Matters here on One News. The House Justice Committee is set to resume its impeachment proceedings against Vice President Sara Duterte. That's today, April 14th. The hearing pushes through despite petitions filed before the Supreme Court seeking to stop these proceedings. Duterte's alleged bagman Ramil Madriaga is expected to testify before the committee. Meanwhile, the Vice President has yet to appear before the House panel since the hearings began. And joining us this morning is Professor Eric De Torres of the Political Science Department over at the University of the East. Good morning, Prof.
Good morning, Danny, and good to have you. Good to have me in your program.
All right. Today is a very big day for the impeachment hearings. What are you expecting to happen today, sir?
Well, of course, this is going to be, again, yet another controversial day when it comes to the manner by which how this committee would be able to handle really the manner by which the case would be handled. Of course, there had been lots of discussions about the approach that there's basically an overreach or their duty is going beyond what is actually expected of them. So as we all know, there had been a petition filed under the Supreme Court as well as other courts questioning about the manner by which the committee is conducting its hearing. So again, of course, the Supreme Court has yet to issue a temporary restraining order. They wrote a letter to the committee explaining that the overall manner or the process by which how they are actually conducting the said impeachment hearing. But at the end of the day, it's with this development of Ramil Madriaga. And I would believe that Attorney Po would also was also summoned. So this is going to be a very interesting day by which how people would be able to view this impeachment proceeding.
All right. Let's go to Madriaga and his role. You have the camp of Vice President Sara Duterte, particularly her lawyer, Attorney Panelo, questioning the credibility of Madriaga as a witness. Your thoughts on that? Is it possible that he gives a testimony and this might not be credible or taken into account?
Well, of course, the only way that that this can be credited, of course, is if they would allow. And that would depend on the base of the rules of the House Committee on Justice of Madriaga being cross-examined by the lawyers of VP Sara Duterte. But if it's going to be a unilateral statement or a unilateral approach wherein Madriaga would just be providing his statement, and the rebuttal will be coming from, or the questioning will be coming from these lawmakers, and none coming from the camp of VP Sara. So I think it's gonna be, there's really a lot of question in terms of the manner by which the narrative would be framed.
Okay. Would it be politically or legally beneficial for the vice president to show up? So far, she has not been participating, no?
Well, from a political vantage point, either legal or political, I think that from a perspective, and this is just my assessment, that from the perspective of the vice president, I think on the outset this is very political in nature. That despite any evidence or whatever legal, approach in terms of questioning the witnesses, um, I think ang tingin ng ating ikalawang pangulo it's very political in nature. So it's within the mindset of the vice president so as not to attend. And plus the fact is that in anticipation that she might be there would be instances that there might be of course disrespect on the part of not just her as a vice president but the office as well. So those are, I think, some of the parameters that the vice president are actually, thinking that, why go there in the first place if this, perhaps on her vantage point, lawmakers, they have already made their decision, and this is just a show technically.
Sir, as a political analyst, no, political scientist, looking at the Philippine population, how has this impeachment process impacted VP Sara's popularity or even her possibility to win in the 2028 presidential elections, if she is allowed to run, of course?
Well, surprisingly, Danny, if you notice from the past months, especially very recent WR Numero had their latest survey. Hindi the VP Sara is not going, her numbers not going down. She's a steady 33% with of course the camp of President BBM and other allies, so to speak, with the marginal 23 to 12% with the others. So in terms of impact, we could relatively say that this is the VP has a steady numbers. Now, I think that the biggest challenge of her presidency or her road to the presidency is this impeachment trial in front of her. So I think in my forecast or in my assessment, should she survive this impeachment trial, I think without any consolidation on the part of the opposition or either administration, then she's really going to be very difficult to to lose in terms of this upcoming elections. Secondly, Danny, I would like to say that everything has been a governance issue. So, for example, VP Sara doesn't have to do anything because the allegations in front of her has something to do with the manner by which she spend the confidential funds. But everything that we're experiencing right now is a governance issue of the failure or the lack of response of the government to this crisis.
Tama.
So as part of that, and she's not even part of the administration. So in strictest sense, she doesn't have to do anything, and the negative criticisms basically is now being absorbed by the administration. So it's really about
Very
a governance
interesting.
issue, and this is a separate issue with regard to how the vice president would be able to survive this impeachment trial.
So is that the reason why her supporters remain very sticky? Prof, can you give us more flavor on that? Why does she have such loyal supporters regardless of anything thrown her way?
Yeah, very good question. Well, of course, it's the Duterte branding. So, it's President Rodrigo Duterte was able to successfully convert that Duterte, the numbers of PRRD to the Duterte brand, which is now, VP Sara. And if you notice, and we go back, and if we backtrack basically the numbers of when the Uniteam was, very much, solid back then, you can relatively see that the numbers of the president and the numbers of VP Sara were actually not really that far. So
Okay.
that gives us an idea na nagbigayan talaga ng boto when it comes to the south, and of course the north in such cases. But you will look at the and you will if you will flesh out basically the numbers of the vice president, it's a steady base votes on their bailiwick, which is Mindanao and half of basically Visayas. And of course all she needs to do is to maintain that numbers and base votes. And of course, yun nga, in political terms, if you're a political strategist, you just get some percentage in Luzon or in
Okay ka
Metro
na.
Manila for that matter. So mathematically, she has a steady base votes.
And can you give us more details or your opinion on this new coalition of Baste Duterte Rage? No, is that a strong coalition? Is that uniting different factions into a strong opposition, perhaps?
Yeah. If you notice, the Range Coalition is actually an interesting coalition, because it's a coalition basically of, what we might say of, opposing parties or blocks against the administration and otherwise. So the only way that the thing that we are to wait right now is, will the other forces, for example, align with the administration? So who are these basically forces? You have basically the Pinks or the
Correct.
Dilaws and other, the Makabayan bloc for that matter. So in terms of looking at it as such, though VP Sara has a steady number, but in any eventuality that these forces basically align together and consolidate and basically know their role, because as of now, if you look at the manner by which how the key figures of these various groups or opposing forces basically they they have a very strong tendency to really not yield. But if someone will be able to consolidate and know their role, and the idea is just to beat VP Sara, so that's another scenario to look at. So it's really it's really more of consolidating the administration forces, the Pink or the Dilaw and the Makabayan bloc, and coming up with a very formidable candidate with the president and vice presidential slate together with the senatorial slate. And I think they have a formidable chance basically to beat VP Sara, should VP Sara survive this impeachment trial.
And your views on that? Why would you think the Pinks, the Yellows would align with the administration rather than with the VP Sara camp?
Well, of course, it's really interest, Danny. It's the manner by which, of course, so many things were happened, and
Especially with this
they're very
flood control issue pa rin, ano, Prof, just to
well.
nuance, especially with these
I think,
governance issues.
yeah, it goes beyond the flood control issue, but I think it's really more of interest. I think they do recognize the fact that with their numbers alone, it's very difficult to beat VP Sara. So I think someone should really, it's like a basketball game, Danny, that there's a role, you have a role to play, and I don't know if you know the movie Moneyball, wherein you have to be a team player with regard to this and know your role. So, but if everybody's gonna be a star player and nobody would like to yield, it's really very difficult to beat VP Sara, kasi at the end of the day ang maghahatian lang ng boto kung sino man yung administration slate at yung manggagaling dito sa forces ng Pink at saka sa Dilaw.
And since,
So the key really to beat is consolidation, coming up with a unified candidate that they would rally behind. So that's I think the most formidable approach in if this everything goes well with VP Sara.
Prof, last question since I have you already. Because we were talking about the popularity of VP Sara. How is the popularity of PBBM and the current administration with the people right now with all of these things going on?
Well, of course, as what I have said, it's really a governance issue. So beyond the rhetorics, I think beyond basically this approach, you have the government or this administration needs to be very responsive, especially with the crisis in front of us. So it already snowballed into various, challenges with food security, economic as well. So nagsanga-sanga na siya eh. At the end of the day, if you notice the figures of the president, his numbers are, slowly declining. So again, it's really a governance issue. The way that he can just turn this around is, to perform optimally, to perform and really, put the top level of governance in his administration in his remaining years ahead of him.
Well, let's see how, of course, this crisis plays out. We all want a successful economy, obviously, regardless of who's in charge. Thank you so much for your time and insights, Professor Eric De Torres.
Thank you very much, Danny.
And don't go away. More matters to discuss after this break. Keep it here on One News. Welcome back. You're still watching Morning Matters here on One News. The Move as One Coalition active transport lead Abigail Modales says the Philippines still lacks the infrastructure needed to support electric vehicles. In an interview with The Big Story, Modales said existing transport policies remain heavily car-centric. She emphasized the need for dedicated lanes to safely separate light electric vehicles from cars. Modales also said the registration of e-bikes and e-trikes could be considered as a policy option. However, she stressed that during times of crisis, all transport options should remain available to ensure commuter mobility.
What we are seeing is we have a lack of infrastructure when it comes to catering to e-bikes and three-wheeled electric vehicles, as well as regular cycling regular bikes. And this is not an accident because for years we have had policies that are car-centric, and we've continuously built infrastructure that caters the movement of cars over the priority of moving people. And that's why in the Executive Order number 110 that was recently released and ordered by the President himself, he highlighted that there must be a prioritization of transport lanes, giving due priority to electric vehicles so that we can lessen our dependence on petroleum as well. Our proposal is the EVIDA, we already have guidance from policy. The EVIDA is very clear on it. Since the speed of electric bikes and three-wheeled electric vehicles cannot be compared to the speed of our regular cars or regular vehicles, then there really must be a priority transport lane that is segregating them from cars. And in this way, we are achieving two ways as we are actually solving two problems at once. First, the problem of discouraged use of LEVs. Ngayon kasi yung mga commuters and the general public, they are discouraged from using their bikes, their light electric vehicles because there's no safe lanes for them. And now if we have a priority lane for them, then we are solving the discouraged use of LEVs. Second is we are also encouraging the use of public transport as well, because when EO 110 is talking about priority lanes, we're not only talking about priority lanes for LEVs, but we're also discussing priority lanes for public transport, buses, jeepneys. The EVIDA law is clear, saying that when it comes to 50 kilograms below with a speed of not more than 25 kilometers per hour, then there's no need to for the licensing or of the user of the LEV. For registration, yes, it can be explored, but once again, the position is not at the time where we are facing an oil crisis such as this. We must make all options viable for commuters so that they have the agency to choose which mobility option is best for them.
Drivers who missed out on earlier fuel subsidy distributions are getting another chance as a special payout is now underway in Marikina. And for the details, let's go live to Mobile Journal Jazz Paredes. Jazz, sino-sino ba yung pwedeng makatanggap ng ayuda dyan today?
Yes, Danny, no, nagsimula na nga ang special payout para sa mga PUJ at all the drivers dito sa Marikina City. At sa aking likuran, makikita nyo dito yung verification area, no? So hindi po ito yung ating payout center. So ilipot ko kayo, Danny. Dito sa entrance, bago makapasok yung mga drivers, meron sila ditong libreng snacks and drinks. So provided daw yan ng Marikina LGU, so libre and open para sa lahat. At pagdating naman nila dito, ay dito yung kanilang QE. Yung sila ba talaga ay nasa lisahan to verify kung okay rin yung kanilang mga ID and documents. Tsaka sila pupunta dito sa aking kanan or right side. Pakita ko sa inyo, Danny, no? May mga papasok na dahil ang scheduling kasi natin ngayon, Danny, meron tayong for PUJ at TODA. So for 7 to 9 a.m. is yung mga TODA lamang. And itong mga paparating na nakikita nating nakapila is ito yung mga PUJ drivers. So sila naman is 9 hanggang 4 p.m. yung kanilang schedule. So ongoing yung payout ng ating mga TODA and pinapapila na rin papasok yung ating mga jeepney drivers. And Danny, actually, no, kanina, bago sila mag-start, nabutan natin na parang may konti pang orientation bago yung kanilang payout. So, hindi na sunod yung 7 a.m. talaga na mamimigay ng subsidy. Pero during the 7 a.m., nung inipon sila, is may konting orientation kung ano ba yung mga kailangan nila provide, para saan ba itong ating subsidy and special payout. At saka lamang sila pinaproceed at hinati-hati, no? So, pinaghiwalay, Danny, yung additional and yung mga unclaimed. So, magkaiba daw yun, Danny. So, para doon sa mga unclaimed, ito yung mga hindi nakakuha doon sa kanilang mga designated schedule for the first and mga sumunod na batch ng payout. Habang yung mga additional naman, Danny, sila talaga yung mga wala sa listahan. So, idinagdag sila doon dito sa panibagong listahan ng DSWD. And for now, Danny, no, 2,600 yung ating inaasahan na mag-claim ngayong araw. At pinakamarami dyan is yung mga PUJ. And ayon sa nakuha nating dato, 659 yung mga TODA. So nilaan sila for this morning. And 1,941 naman yung mga JODA. And Danny, before ako ipakita sa inyo yung itong ating payout, ipakita ko rin sa inyo yung kasalukuyang sitwasyon sa ating help desk. Dahil napansin ko kanina, Danny, no, halos mapuno yung area ng Marikina Sports Center. Ilibot ko lang kayo, Danny, no? Ay marami pa rin tayong na-encounter na may mga problema sa kanilang registration and verification, Danny, no? Nandito siya sa kabilang side ng Marikina Sports Center. So, ito yung ating help desk. Ayan. Okay. And kung makikita nyo, Danny, no, napakaraming tao dito. At nung nag-usap tayo kanina nung merong mga problema, yung ilan sa kanila, expecting na ngayong araw daw ay meron na sila or nasa listahan na sila dahil nga nag-register na sila after nilang mawala doon sa unang payout. And until na wala pa rin sila sa listahan. So, disappointed sila kasi expecting na special payout is dedicated for them, kasama na sila sa additional. Pero ngayon, wala pa rin daw sila sa listahan, so pinalapit sila sa help desk. And meron din naman na nasa listahan daw sila online. Pagpasok naman dito is wala pa rin sa listahan. At additional pa na problema, Dani, no? Meron naman daw na kung tama naman yung spelling ng pangalan, pero ang nakalagay lang daw sa kanilang middle initial, which is mali daw. Dapat daw ay middle name Danny yung nakaregister. So, pinalamat sila dito sa help desk, and which is currently right now, ito yung sitwasyon, ongoing pa rin naman. And napakarami din talagang tao dito, Danny. No? May mga meron pa na iba yung birthday and spelling. So, disappointed sila kasi dapat 9:30 a.m. tapos na yung kanilang schedule. Pero until now, nakapila pa rin sila sa help desk, Danny.
All right, no? The lengths that our PUV drivers have to go through para lang makakuha ng ayuda. Maraming salamat for that update over in Marikina. Mobile Journal Jazz Paredes. And let's also check the situation of the cash aid distribution this time in Malabon. We have our mobile journalist Ray Vicente on the ground. Diyan naman sa Malabon. Kamusta, Ray?
Dani, dito nga sa Malabon Sports Complex at kasalukuyan din sinasagawa yung special payout para lang naman sa TODA or mga tricycle drivers and operators. At kung makikita nyo nga sa aking likuran, ito yung sitwasyon para sa verification, no? Katulad na lamang doon sa Marikina, mas marami na ang tao rito kumpara kaninang umaga. Pero actually, ngayon lang din talaga nagpapasok doon sa kabilang korte kung saan nga binibigay talaga yung 5,000 na cash ayuda. Dahil kahit 7 a.m. Dani, yung mismong simula o pagpapapasok talaga sa mga tricycle drivers, ngayon lang talaga nagsimula yung pamimigay ng cash ayuda dun sa kabilang korte. Hindi natin mapakita yung kasalukuyang sitwasyon kasi may pagkalayuan, no, pero kayang-kaya naman daw lakarin. At dahil nga yan naantala, dahil hindi pa raw dumadating yung mismo paymaster na tinatawag nila o yung nagbibigay ng 5,000 na cash ayuda. Pero simula nga nagbigay na, makikita nyo naman, marami ng bakante ng upuan kasi tuloy-tuloy na yung daloy ng pila. At dito nga, papakita ko lang, ayan, kung makikita nyo, dito kasi sa verification daling, tulad nga sa Marikina, sinasagawa yung pagtitingin kung may problema ba sa pangalan, sa address, yung mga mali-mali spelling, no? At so far, yung mga nakakausap natin ay ang sabi din ng mga kinakausap natin na mismo from DSWD, yung mga may mali sa pangalan, may mga misspelling, i-encode na ngayong araw at magkakaroon na lang daw ng another schedule for special payout kasi according dito sa DSWD dito sa Malabon, para raw ito hindi magkaroon ng dituhan ngayong araw, lalo hanggang 4 p.m. lang daw talaga open itong Malabon Sports Complex. Pero in case daw na magkaroon na ng cut-off at meron pang mga continuous na tricycle drivers and operators na pumupunta at hindi pa makakakuha pagkatapos nga ng cut-off, mas sure naman daw na magkakaroon ng cut-off, magkakaroon ng panibagong schedule, lalo na nga kaka-announce lang yung DSWD, pati LTFRB, na magkakaroon ulit ng schedule sa Friday para both na sa TODA, pati TUJ na drivers, no? Pero sabihin ko lang din, Dani, yung isa sa mga hinaing ng mga nakausap natin dito, katulad na lamang kanina, kasi dito, Dani, pakita ko rin, is yung pwestuhan ng mga federation o mga leaders ng mga TODA drivers, pati operators, kung saan sila yung nagbibigay ng listahan mismo sa desk, sa DSWD, para mapakita kung sino-sino nga ba yung nasa listahan. And isa nga sa mga hinain dito is yung isa nasa probinsya pala during Holy Week and kakabilik lang. So, hindi siya nalista ng kanyang presidente ng Federation ng TODA drivers dahil nga nasa probinsya. Kaya ngayon, mag-aantay na lang siya ng panibagong schedule. Pero yun nga, wala talagang kasiguraduhin yung Dani. No? Kasi unlike sa mga merong misspelling, mali sa address, or may kaparehas na pangalan, na meron talagang, kumbaga, fixed na schedule na para sa mga susunod na payout, sa kanya, hindi pa sure dahil nga wala sa master list. So sa total, Dani, nasa 1,249 ang inaasahan na mabibigyan ng 5,000 nga na cash assistance, kung saan 565 ang unclaimed, at 684 naman yung additional na mabibigyan dito sa Malabon na TODA drivers, Dani.
All right, thank you for that update, mobile journalist Ray Vicente over in Malabon. And that wraps up today's episode of Morning Matters. We hope we have given you just the right start to your morning. Let's make the day matter. I'm Danny Laurel. Kapatid, we are One News, all sides, all the time.